Yeah, so Ben has got a background in cost estimation and all that. So today I'll be just throwing questions to him. Like we just want to fish out information, get the education from Ben. He's gonna share his journey from when he started, why property, and like for someone who aspires to do what Ben is doing now, well, what are the right steps and guidance to take? Because we all here to learn about property. We all here because we want that extra information and that extra things which can take us our journey to the next level. Whether you're starting or whether you're already in property, we just want us to get that information and go to the next level. So Ben, if you don't mind, just giving us a quick introduction of yourself, and we just kick off like that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's a great platform to obviously connect and share with all sorts of people from all over. And we're obviously being started by Zimbabweans. It's always going to be great to see connecting with other people who were doing different things, getting different ideas and sharing knowledge. So anyway, a bit about myself. I'll go with this as short a version as I can that summarizes it all. But I started in as a trainee quantity surveyor, which is basically a construction accountant. I suppose is probably the easiest way to try and describe what I do. To those who may not know what it is, and I started that as a trainee when I was 17. I was fortunate enough to get sort of sponsored through education from a company that I was working for, going to school 1 day a week, working 4 days for them. So that's 2004. One day release scholars, going to school, it takes a long time. It took me 5 years to get my degree done. Then I went through to get a master's done alongside with different employers along the way. Got chartered in 2011, and I've just been literally in and around obviously construction and property since the beginning, basically all that time. And then 2 years ago, the game, I suppose, not changed. I just sort of evolved into branching out into more property and development. And now that's what I do full time. So I still do consulting as a quantity surveyor, and I also still, and I'm also doing the development as well full time. Um,
Mute yourself.
don't know how much you caught of that. It seemed like I was on mute. Anyway, best part of 20 years in construction and property. So a lot of knowledge, and that's where I am. So hopefully I can help, at least one person with something that I'll share today. Then I think that will be a good thing that we've done today, really.
For sure, Ben. Yeah, thanks. I'm 100% interested in learning more about the development side. So for those people like everyone here, I'm sure no one has done like huge developments like which you've done. So if someone aspires to start on the development side, well, what are the practical steps? Like to say, well, what's actually the step one for you? It was a transition from your day job as a quantity surveyor, and you naturally transitioned into uh, property development. For me, I'm a project manager. I don't know anything about building a house ground up.
Yeah,
So what are the practical sides? What's the
I
first
think
thing
the
someone
best
should
way
do?
to start. I think, and again, when people used to say what I'm about to say, I always just think, come on, give me something else. But actually, is the most practical step ever is getting some form of education around what you're doing. Whether it's doing flips on a house, BRR, or whether it's a new build development, you need to have that education. I mean, in a way, I was a bit fortunate in the sense that what I was doing in my day job was very, very closely aligned to full on development, because I was working for developers who were coming to us as clients saying, right, I've got this, I want to build this, can you help me? And then I would literally handhold them to develop what they had. But what they didn't have was the knowledge, but what they did have was the deals, and what they did have was the money. So I think the knowledge is the main thing. Um, if you How you get the knowledge, you get it through obviously different sources. You can read the books. There's so many books out there. There's so much stuff on YouTube. Network like mad. Or you can do the shortcut route, which a lot of people do, obviously, is pay for courses that people run. Not degrees or anything like that, but just targeted towards just getting started as a developer or into property. I think development it's so broad, because if I buy a house and I decide to add another bedroom in, or to put an extension on, or to refurb it, in a way you actually are a developer, because you're creating something from nothing or adding value to something that was already there. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's massive developments, which is predominantly what I'm doing now. And what I've done is new build apartment blocks, new build student accommodation blocks, getting land on option agreements and getting planning for them, and then developing, at that end. That's the other side of the spectrum. But I think it's if you're looking to get started, get the knowledge and see what avenues you have, and then decide on one specific niche area where you're going to get going. Inevitably, you will grow through knowledge and through contacts, and with that, your confidence as well. So then that will enable you to get to the bigger projects. So don't take off too much that you can't, that will be difficult to chew. Get educated first, and then see what your risk appetite is like, because it is very risky, particularly if you're going for the big buck. But if you're going slowly and steady, I would say just get educated, identify your niche area, what type of development you want to do, and then target and zone in on that, and then grow in that particular lane. That's probably what I'd say is the best thing to do.
For sure. Yeah, I heard my volume is a bit low. Can everyone hear me, or is it just you want me to exit and come back again?
It's slightly better now, probably because you've kind of raised your own volume. If you want to try to just exit and come back in, see if that helps. I'll just ask a question whilst you do that.
Okay, no worries. Yep.
Yeah.
Is my volume okay? Yeah.
Yeah, yours is fine.
Good.
So Ben, really love the fact that you mentioned if you're doing a BRI, even on a residential property, doing an extension or whatever, in some way you are actually a developer.
You are a developer, yeah.
Not many people actually look at it that way. And so would you recommend, if as a starter, if I'm starting and I want to do developments, would you recommend that I start that small, or would you recommend that I just get educated on the big stuff and go straight for that?
Personally, I think there's as much effort, if not more, on a small deal, and there's more sweat that you spend on a small deal than a big deal. On a big deal, you might have, say, 5% contingency, but if it's £1 million, 5% of £1 million is quite a lot of money. Whereas if you've got 5% on a 30,000 deal, it's all relative, I suppose, as to what things can go wrong. But you work just as hard, if not harder, on a small deal than you do with a big deal. So I think if you're going to get the education, I think I would personally, obviously, I'm coming from a position where I guess that's where I was sort of honed in. But I would say just go in with the development, because the similar processes will apply to the small stuff. And if you get the big education, you kind of know where you're aiming towards, where you're aiming to go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, having said that, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, because if you're starting from a position of, say, you've got a lot of time and knowledge, but you don't have money, which is where I was, you want to learn something that will give you the fast pound.
That's it.
That you can use. So it could be the deal sourcing, it could be finding the big deals and selling them on. But having said that, finding the big deals and selling them on is more difficult than finding a small deal and selling that on.
Yeah.
But then in practicality, when you're delivering them, you work just as hard on a big deal as you do on a small deal. But and also the good thing is, if you find a big enough deal, you can get paid 30, 40, 50,000 just like that.
Yeah.
Whereas on a small deal, it might be £1,000, £2,000, £3,000. So I think getting the big education, and then you can always apply it to the smaller. But that's what I think. Some people might say different, but I just think if you're gonna go into it, you might as well go big, right?
go big or go home type
You
thing.
might as well. You might as well, because you can always scale back if it's too much.
Of course.
And whether you're starting big or starting small, the problem, predominantly speaking to people who are like me, is the money. So if the money's not there, you know, pay for education, know what you're doing, know how to find the deals, know how to sell them.
Yeah.
But if you've got that big education, you almost have a bit more confidence about what you're talking about, because
Absolutely.
you're already talking that big development language.
Yeah.
Whereas trying to develop it from a small, you know, you might get the education for a small deal, like a flip or whatever. And then you just think, oh, maybe it's the fear factor. I'm quite a fearful, cautious person naturally, but so I'll always try to limit to and stay in what I know. But if you've gotten big, then guess what? You'll be staying and doing what you know on a bigger scale than on a smaller scale. But that's mindset and options, and that's what I think. Just go big if you can get it. If you can get the education for the big stuff, just do it.
Fair play. Fair play.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah. Tabo, you back? Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just caught on to that one, and I like the fact you brought on mindset. You're gonna come to questions for the mindset, but I just wanted you to quantify, like, what's a small deal, what's a big deal. You know what I mean?
For me, a big deal is one that when I calculate, I always have a percentage in mind of a return. The percentage I have in mind is always between sort of 23 and 28% return on development value. That if that number is big enough to get someone interested who's going to be investing with a big number. So if say they've got £100,000, and I say to them, right, off that 20%, you can have 10%. It has to be a big enough. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it has to be a big enough number to keep them interested. And also, you know, you're hitting that 20 to 30% on a deal that will help you get financed, etc. So for me, a big deal is probably anything from £500,000 and above.
Okay.
In terms of GDV. And again, that's relative, because if you're in London, that's a house. But if you're up north in Leeds, that's a 5-block apartment. That's like new build 5-block apartment, or that could be 6 houses, like we did in Lincoln. So it's different depending on where you are. And also the other thing is, when I'm looking for deals where they're big enough to make sure that I can, by the time that we get to site and the contract is building, I don't have to be there every day. So it doesn't matter whether it's 100,000, 200,000, but I don't want to be having to be project managing on site and making sure that the pipes have arrived and all that kind of stuff. That's not my job. So any deal has to be big enough to accommodate a contractor looking after that site by themselves pretty much. And I can just attend once or twice a month, if anything. So small deal normally, I guess, is the houses. If it's a house in London, like I said, 500 grand, it's nothing. Yeah. But up north, it's a bigger deal. So it's just depending on where you are, I think, and what you're looking at.
So there's a common trait with a lot of developers, which I've seen, like in terms of location. You guys just buy land anywhere and everywhere. So like, obviously, when I went to these property courses, they say like your Goldman area should be like an hour away drive from
here. That.
So in terms of the development side, in terms of location, how do you guys assess location? Do you just buy where the margins are?
For me, nowhere is safe. That's personally, because if the deal's good enough, even if it's in Ireland, and it's gonna hit the margins, the parameters, the performance measures that we've got, I'm comfortable. If it's in Scotland on the most northern side, if it hits the margins after we pay everybody, I'm comfortable. Because at the end of the day, on the big deals, you're not going to be there every day. You might visit it when you go see it. You might visit it once a month or twice a month, but it's not every day. On the small deal, maybe you have to go a bit more often. But so how we look for land, and how I've sort of taught the guys who we work with is we predominantly look for areas where there's a massive housing shortage. That's the start. Because in the country there's different areas with need. So local planning, the local development plans from each city has got one. And if literally, you don't even have to look very hard. If you Google housing shortages in different counties, or even where you live. You're starting with where you live. It can tell you whether there's a shortage or if they're in excess. If they're in excess, that just means that you can build, but it's not going to be as easy to get planning. But if they're in shortage, effectively that means they're looking for housing. And so let's have a look at where they're looking for housing. So through that exercise, you have identified where the shortages are, and then you can start looking for land or buildings for residential purposes if you are looking for residential in those areas. If you're looking to do commercial stuff like shops and things like that, there's no need to limit yourself, because again, that development plan that each county or city has, they've actually identified the areas within your city where they want to say increase employment, or they want to have schools, or they want to have more housing, and they'll tell you where those areas are. And predominantly what you'll find is after you've gone through the development plan, when you then Google and look for those areas or those sites where they've identified, they've been bought up by the big companies like Red Row and all these other big major house builders. So what you then try and do is try and find land or sites in and around those areas, those pockets. So at least you're kind of like in the right part of the city where they want to grow. And then you look for land in those areas. So that's in print, that's pretty much how the governing factor as to what dictates where I'm looking, what I'm looking at. If anything, there's just a shortage of hands, because there's so many places in the country where you can be looking.
Okay, fair enough.
So there's enough room for everybody to find land, put it that way.
So you say for every city there is a massive housing shortage, yeah?
Pretty much, yeah. And some areas they've exceeded their housing targets. So every year they get tested whether how they've performed by the government, and then they get told, right, you need to put in an action plan to permit more development, or actually you guys have exceeded your targets, so you don't need to let as much development through. So literally look in your count, start with where you live is what I would say.
So
and
Ben,
look at a development plan. Yeah.
Where is this information? Is it in the internet?
It's on the internet. It's on the internet. The thing is, every council's got different they've got different portals and all that kind of thing. So if you Google where the council where you live and just type in local development plan, or what's it called, SHLA, SHLAA, that will come up.
Okay. Yeah. I hope everyone took note of that, because
so just have a look. It's interesting reading. That's free information, to be fair. There's nothing that you'll have paid for that. All it takes is time.
True. So obviously with this information as well, like, am I wrong to think like you can also apply this information on those small buy-to-let still? Because if there's a massive housing shortage in Glasgow, I can get my buy-to-lets and house people there, so it doesn't have to be same like principle. For land and all that. So you can apply the same thinking. Yeah, let's go back to like how you find these actual land deals, the land itself. Is it actual land you're looking for, or derelict buildings? Because when I was introduced to land developments, I just thought you're looking for land only, but other people say no, it's also like derelict warehouses, buildings, etc. Can you just clarify that to people?
Anything, nothing's safe, like I said. It could be on where it is located, but buildings are even easier, to be fair, because it's not being used. The council normally are like, actually, what can happen with this building? It's an eyesore. What can we do to it? So if it hasn't been bought already, or if you've been driving past it and you just think, what, this would make a fantastic, I don't know, hotel or whatever you might be thinking. Land registry, man. Land registry, find out who owns it. There's nothing at it. So when they're saying development, it's not just land, it's buildings as well. It can be a row of houses which are boarded up that you just want to buy, knock down and rebuild, or whatever it is. So it can be anything.
Really owned by the council or housing associations.
I've never approached the council for any buildings. Although actually my parents had applied to the council for some land and they just got told no thanks. So I think probably just from that experience of seeing never done anything with that, but mainly it's private individuals or companies who are just either buy it and they're just sitting on it and they're just not doing anything with it for one reason or another. But you'll be surprised. I think one of the sites that we found, it was a pub that was bought by a company that didn't want Tesco buying it because that would put them out of business. We didn't successfully negotiate buying that piece of land because they wanted too much. Yeah. But it was just an example to show that, there is land that's just sat there and buildings that are sat there that people have just bought more for strategy rather than for development. So you'll only know after you ask the question. And you've approached. So
that's true.
Yes. So sites all around city centers, outside the city centers, right next door to you, wherever you are, just keep an eye peeled, basically.
Yeah. I choose like Nimbus or Land Insights to look for these derelict buildings, land, and all that kind of stuff. Can you share if you use those kind of softwares and what are the benefits of it? And the reason why I'm bringing this question, because those kind of tools, even if you're doing buy to let, serviced accommodation, if you know like there's a huge development which is going on, like probably in Coventry, you can get your essay there and be attracting contractors, etc. Yeah. So can someone who's using like who's doing serviced accommodation or who's buying buy to let HMO be using these tools like Nimbus and Land Insights, which you guys use to find land?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I started out the old-fashioned way, just using Google. Google Maps, free of charge. It's more painful, but it's doable. And if you really want to do it without forking out money, you can do it that way. These days, I have committed to. It's not an ad or anything. I have committed to Nimbus. That's what Land Insights good for. I've been on for a long, long time. I know normally you can just go on and do like a filter and a click, but with property data, I think it scours across all of these housing listing type websites, and you can find houses or buildings that have been on there for a long time that haven't been bought for whatever reason, or that are below market value. So those are the three, I suppose, commercial ones if you had to pay that I would look at. But I favor Nimbus. That's what I use and that's what I'm familiar with. But you can do quite a lot with Nimbus. If anything, it's not that you can't do anything without it. You definitely can do stuff without it, but it just makes it easier and it's quicker, but it's expensive. Personally, I think it's expensive for what it does, but it does the job, I guess. It makes it quicker, which is what people pay for, I guess.
No, for sure. Yeah. Now, so unfortunately, where I live in Scotland, we don't have the joys of Nimbus or Land Insight because
that's interesting, actually.
Yeah, our land registry is not like apparently up to standard, or it's not joined together with the English one.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've never looked for anything in Scotland. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's so we don't have that, but we've got property data. I use property data myself.
Yeah,
it's a good tool. It's a good software. But yeah, no, thanks for that. Let's reset this room a bit, like reset Clubhouse.
Clubhouse style.
Yeah, I miss those times.
I haven't been on Clubhouse for a while.
Nah, I deleted the app. I haven't been for like 3-4 months. But anyways, yeah, you spoke about mindset, like in your early introductions, you spoke about mindset. I'm big on the mindset because I believe us as individuals, we limit ourselves, because I personally had limiting beliefs to think that, land development is the last stage, in your property journey.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? And what's your thoughts on the mindset? What type of mindset do you have to be to call yourself a land developer or a property developer?
Yeah, it's a shark's game to be honest, particularly when you're going for the big stuff. So you do have to have you mustn't let things get to you. I guess is probably the biggest thing. Be a little bit thick-skinned. I mean, naturally, I'm quite a compassionate person, so before I sort of got my mind right, if anybody said anything, or if I didn't win something, or if we didn't successfully negotiate something, I'll feel very frustrated and like, oh, what's wrong with me? This and the other. But it's knowing that as quickly as the deals can come, sometimes it's as quickly for the deals to fall through as well. So there's times where you're negotiating stuff and it just falls through after spending a little bit of money, which is very painful because money is very hard earned. Or after you spent a lot of time on it, which again is probably a bit more expensive than any currency you can get. And things fall through. So it can be very frustrating. And also, the mindset, getting over that. And I normally just read books and stuff just to work on my mind and just get ideas from people who are a lot more bullish, I suppose, than I am, because you meet all sorts of types of characters. For me, I got introduced to Grant Cardone by my sister, and I read his book called 10X. And there's another one as well, Be Obsessed or Be Average. And the guy does come across quite brash, to be honest, but actually it lights up a bit of fire in you. And I used to listen to that when I'm going to work, and I actually noticed that listening to that book on my way to work, by the time I get to work, I'm already like, I'm on fire, I'm ready to take on whatever's coming my way, kind of thing. So I think my mindset's a big deal, man. If you can get your mind right, listen to the right stuff, or read the right stuff if you're a reader. I'm not a big reader, I prefer to listen. And also having people around you who either you aspire to or encourage you, rather than look down on your weaknesses and try to prey on them, if you like. I think that's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So yeah, mindset's really, really important.
Yeah, Nada, for sure, for sure. On the book section, like I think books are, it's the easiest and it's the closest tool you can get to. It's easily accessible, and it can help you like to get from one point to another point, like, and develop your mind. I like Uncle G as well. Grant Cardone is like, he's inspiring, he's motivating, and yeah, like you said, it can be a bit too much, but you need that fire in you as well.
Definitely.
So on the book side as well, like for those people, the 34 people on the call, we've started a book club. Muzi started a book club, so it's like we meet every month, and on the book club, we choose one book to read, and after 1 month, everyone reads the books, whether you read a physical copy or you listen to it on YouTube or Audible, whatever software you use, you listen to the book. After 1 month, we come and hold each other accountable on the book to say, okay, what did you learn on this book? Like, how did it develop you personally, financially, and professionally? On your goals, is it going to be helping you on your goals? So we're starting off with this book called Start With Why. So which comes to our purpose. For in life in general, and why we do things, what we do. So I think the question will come back to you, Ben, to say, in terms of like learn development, you've mentioned that sometimes it is challenging, sometimes it is hard, but what keeps you going when you hit those roadblocks?
Need to put food on the table. To be honest, because I mean, like, now I rely literally on what I'm doing. This is like it. There's no fallback. So that's number one. That's number. I suppose if I had to identify why, that's the main why. But also, I think after you've done it for so long, lost a bit of hair and stuff, you kind of know that just because you've had one objection, it doesn't define your life in any way, shape, or form. There's a book again, there's one that is called Go for No, kind of thing. And so no, people are always going to say no, whichever way. Some people are just like that. Sometimes you get an easy yes kind of thing. But I think it's just, that's what drives me, is the fact that I'm in this 2 feet. I have to make sure that it works, because I've given up what I thought was a great career, with working for people and exchanging, I suppose, time for other people's success. But I've realized I'm working just as hard doing this for myself as I was for other people as well. And for me, that's particularly like the last couple of years, and having gone through like the pandemic last year and still be here, still actually it was probably the most successful year last year, for what we're doing, and it's just a great driver. And I still get challenges every day. You know, Instagram, sometimes people look at it and think, oh, everything's going fantastically well, this and the other. But the truth is, it's not. People just post their instant successes on there when things go well. But behind the scenes, there's so many rejections, so many letters that you get back saying, don't ever call, you write to us again. Or you go through negotiations and you're with a very hard or brash negotiator, or other people who just don't like your skin color, which I've had as well. So
yeah.
you know, you can't do anything to change their perceptions, but what you can control is how you going to react to that. And if you react and I suppose buckle because of what somebody else has said, that debate, as we know, that's not the right way to handle it. You just have to create that little bit of mental toughness, and some of it's done through the books. I'm fortunate to have an amazing wife who like kicks my backside more than anything, which is great. So I think it's just having the people around you who, I suppose, know your vulnerabilities, and also balancing that with, you know, getting yourself, your mind well tuned, and also have, you know, surrounding yourself with great team. And a lot of people say that and it sounds like, oh yeah, just have a great team, but it's very true. You know, if you mix, you know, people on the network, like networks like that, they're great because everybody wants to do the same thing. Everybody wants to get better. So if you've got a, you know, if it's a technical problem or a hurdle, or you feel like you're stuck, then you can always try, you know, you can always find an answer. And one thing I heard the other day from my brother-in-law is, he said, oh, if you're stuck, it doesn't mean that's the end of the road. It just means there's a bit of a knowledge gap. So stop telling yourself you're stuck. It just means there's something you don't know, but you can get the answer to it. And you know, just thinking about it that way, I think frees up a lot of mud in your feet when you're stuck and you think, I can't do this because you know, I'm stuck. I just got stuck, so I gave up. No, you're not stuck for life. You don't just give up. You can get the answer because somebody else has done it before. So I think that's a big deal right there to just try and remember.
For sure, Ben. Should I tell him who your brother-in-law is?
No, I think that for another day is fine. Nah, go ahead. It's all good.
Stephen Leeds, that's Ben's brother-in-law. Yeah, Ben. Let's talk about joint ventures. You know, because in these land developments, there's a lot of because you can't do a deal on your own. Like if it's a big deal, so you need other joint venture parties and all that kind of stuff. What's your thoughts on joint ventures? And for someone who wants to do joint ventures within this kind of space, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, my advice has been formed off the back of my experiences. So I'm not speaking for every single developer and every single person who's doing this. I've been fortunate to be on the other side of the coin where I was helping developers, and I've seen relationships fractured, which then affect how the developments are being delivered. But it's mainly around money and percentages and all that kind of thing. So from seeing all those type of things, I've formed my own thoughts on that. Now that we're doing what we're doing, I'd rather have a small pool of very good joint venture partners with good relationships that go very, very deep, rather than having a wide pool of investors who either I don't know very well, or because development, again, depending on the scale and the size, when things go wrong, people start pointing fingers. You said it was going to be this. And for me, obviously, I'm exchanging my time and my knowledge rather than the person with the money. So what I don't want is joint venturing with someone who's got such a bad attitude or such bad characteristics that at the very first hurdle of things going wrong, it's you said this, you said that. The person who I'd rather partner with or JV with is someone who's going to be like, right, okay, how can we solve it? Because at the end of the day, whether you've got a good relationship or a bad relationship, the problem still needs to get solved. So I try to joint venture with people who are either I already know or who have been introduced to me by people I trust, and with the view of, right, let's do this, we progress, let's see how our characteristics align, and how we can work together, and then form deeper relationships to then keep doing, basically rinse and repeat, rather than going stupendously wide. But then that's just my opinion. I know some people who do it the other way. They go very wide. They've got a lot of investors, and they do, they exceedingly well. And obviously, they'll be way richer than probably I will ever be because they've got a much bigger pool of money. But for me, it's just the way that I just prefer to operate, is having deep relationships, and just take it as steady. But at the same time, because of that, that's probably why I prefer to try and look for the bigger deals than the smaller deals. Because with the smaller deals, obviously you need to have a much quicker churn or go much wider, which again is a successful strategy that's been implemented by so many people who've done really well out of it. But it's just that in the lane that I'm in, that's just how I'm trying to do it.
For sure. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's say you found a big deal now, the bigger deals you've been talking about.
Yeah.
How do you normally finance them?
Yeah, so it depends on the stage. If it's cash, if say you're buying something, a site for cash or whatever, I never predominantly try to buy stuff outright if I can help it. I'll always try to find the alternative way of buying it, which is basically either saying to the owners, right, you already own this site. Are you actually in a hurry to sell it? If it's got planning already, what's the problem? Is it a matter of raising finance, or is it because you want to release some equity to do something else, or you just haven't come around to doing it? And just trying to identify what it is. But if I found a deal now and I needed money for it, the first thing would be to go to the investors and say, like, well, we've got this deal. I can put in X amount, a third, 2/3, half, whatever, and then pitch it and see what the interest is. And then obviously, if they don't have any funds and they're exhausted and I still think, nah, this is a deal we can't let go, then obviously you have to open it up a bit wider. But then at the same time, you've got that balance of thinking, who am I going to be JVing with? Because again, that influences, for me, it influences a lot. And I'd rather not be greedy and JV with the right person and finance the right deal the right way rather than not. And most of the time with all the stuff that we're looking at, it's mainly the finance to build, which is not too much of a problem. Once you secure the assets and it's a certain percentage of the development cost, then it's absolutely fine. But at the same time, there's other deals that we're looking at where we're actually expending money at risk. So for those ones, you need to have really done your homework, because you're not buying a site, but you're committing to buying something when it's got planning, but you're going to pay for the planning. And if you're going to pay for the planning, you want to try and make sure that the probability of getting the planning is as high as possible, though it's hard to forecast because you just don't know. But to try and, expend a bit of money at risk without losing too much or getting bitten. But that takes a little bit more knowledge. And for those ones, it's mainly just a mix of the close investors I have, including myself as well. I'm putting some money on the line, hopefully kind of work out kind of thing. But so far we haven't been stung yet, so I'm sure our turn will come.
Nah.
But no, because trust me, it always happens. You will get something, but hopefully at that time that ratio won't be too much of a problem. But so far it's been good. We've been very. To be fair, I think it's more down to the DD beforehand. Basically, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Ben, I'll throw 3 more questions for myself, then I'll open the floor to everyone else. I'm sure a lot of people have got questions for you. Material costs, 2021. We've seen a lot of materials going up. It's probably you mid through, or you beginning of your development. So how are you gonna mitigate that? Because timber has doubled in price in the past 3 months or so, and all that kind of stuff. So how are you mitigating that?
On pretty much at the appraisal level, that's when I deal with it. When we first look at it, so say I've done, I don't know, 6 appraisals this week, I'll look at what's called the BCIS inflation, tender price inflation indices. It's like retail price index, I guess, but it's more geared towards construction. And that usually, it's a paid service, unfortunately, but to be fair, even if you Google construction inflation, it'll probably come up with some form of forecast from either a high-end consultant or the BCIS one. And what I'll do is I'll look at the forecasts over the next 12 to 18 months and I'll look at when we are thinking of either building or starting to look at buying stuff to build. And then I'll multiply my forecasted construction costs by that percentage inflation that's been, and then at least I've accounted for it. So hopefully by the time that we actually do get to that stage, it's either it's dipped and not gone further up. But typically, at least you've got something there rather than starting from scratch and thinking, oh, snap, inflation's gone through the roof. Because it's a funny one, because I've been studying this in the last, particularly at the beginning of the year, when we were forecasting for a lot of sites. And whilst people were thinking, right, we're in the pandemic, yeah, things were definitely going up. But actually the effect of things, the materials are going up now, but then the effect is only going to be felt in 8, 9, 10 months time rather than an immediate. Obviously in some aspects like M&E, mechanical and electrical stuff, it's a bit more immediate, and tech stuff is always quite immediate hit. So you do need to consider that inflation. But usually for what I look at the scale that I'm looking at is the BCIS stuff, tender price inflation. And that's as good a forecast as any. And that's what I use, and it works. So it's proven, because it's still in use, and it's been in use for the last hundreds of years, however long the BCIS has been up for.
Well, I'm sure for those kind of sizes as well, because you're buying large quantities, high volume. So it's like there's a lot of stuff you're buying. So other suppliers can be easier on you than someone doing a normal buy to let, where they're just buying 3 strips of timber, you know.
Yeah, no, it definitely does affect that for sure.
Yeah,
it definitely does.
So, yeah, 2 more questions from me, and I'll open the panel to the public. Contractors, builders. At the minute, I'm personally struggling to find builders. Like there's a lot of obviously demand for trades, so the prices have gone up as well. Like and I just wanted to get your viewpoint in your side of things. How is it for trades? If they skyrocketed their prices?
There's now the prices do go up. They definitely have gone up because of the massive shortage. But the thing is, the shortage is not a new thing. The shortage has been running for the last 20 years. So what we try and do is we try and design out the more difficult trades. So for example, if it's brick, say the brick guys, they cost a fortune. So what you then try to do is maybe go for a timber frame or you get what's called as brick slips, clad in preformed stuff.
And
it makes it just that little bit easier on your numbers at your bottom line, and obviously the need for trades. But then there's things that you can't get away from, like the joiners who do the kitchens. You're almost at their mercy in a way. Particularly if you're looking at the smaller stuff, and I know that's for sure. I mean, for the smaller stuff where we've done like flips or refurbing just houses, I've been fortunate enough to know a couple of guys who are like ex-firemen, for example, who are good at what they do, and they don't have to be branded as a carpenter to be able to fit a kitchen in. So long as they can show me that they've done them before, it's all good. But obviously, if it's like a proper, business model, but then that's just for a one-off, one or two flips here and there. But if you're doing it long term as a strategy where you've got loads of flips, I think definitely having builders who continually use, I think, hook them in 1, 2, 3 times, and then just pay them as well as you possibly can, knowing that they know that you come through and you pay them as well. There's enough money in construction development, I think, anyway, to be able to pay as good as you can and get that relationship. But it's mainly down to relations, because if they know you and you're doing well and you're always continually feeding them work, they'll always try to accommodate you. But then if you're going to a new area, which is I guess where you came from, where you're looking at different sites all over the country, and you're new to the area and trying to find someone new, I think it's always going to be a little bit more difficult personally than if you're doing a big project, say £4 or £5 million project. It's a lot easier to find a contractor because they're crying out for those type of projects, for those type of sites. So, and you approach 1 or 2, maybe 3, through tender. So on the big stuff, you won't have much of a problem, but on the smaller stuff, it's definitely even more so about relationships than anything, I think, and also location.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So even on the big stuff, how do you vet like the contractors? Because like I went to what's this a travel lodge, a hotel, nice hotel. But when I
Yeah.
saw the quality of work which was done, and I was like, wow, the cowboy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Okay. So
yeah, contractors.
see, I'll tell you why you always end up with big buildings that got problems.
Yeah.
The problem starts at the beginning with the developer.
Mm.
So for example, I'll have done, I know I did that. I've been appraised. I think I did like 6 appraisals last week, maybe 7. Anyway, 6 appraisals, and I've got a certain number in mind that we can deliver that site for. So, so now imagine 12 months has passed. We're now at a stage, we've got planning. We're now looking to tender this job. We tender the site out to 2 or 3 contractors. Normally, before you get to that point of tendering, you'll do what's called a PQQ, pre-qualification thing. And you might have a short list of 10 local contractors who you think are suitable. And you'll send it out, and then you ask them to apply by a certain date. And then you pre-qualify them based on experience at what they've done locally, references, how big they are, what their turnover is like, because you don't want them to go bust on you whilst you're delivering the job as well. And then you then obviously you create your own marking criteria. And then from say that list of 10, you say, right, we want to select the top 4. And then the top 4 from that shortlist, they then get given the tender to price up and submit back to you. Say you give them 6-7 weeks to price up, give it back to you. You look at it, you look at how much they're gonna charge you to build it. You look at the site team, have they got experience? Do they live locally is always a big thing. Are they based locally as a head office? Who are you going to be dealing with on a day-to-day when you do have questions? And then you get, say, the top 2 of that exercise. You invite them for an interview. You actually meet the guys who are being put forward to deliver the job. And then you make your decision based on that. Now, it sounds very long-winded, but it'll save you a ton of problems later on. But then having said that, a lot of the time when things are done shoddy is because the developer has said, right, we want the cheapest tenderer. That's what always happens. That's always been the case, and that will always be the case. We want the cheapest developer because my numbers 12 months ago were different. Instead of delivering this job for £5 million, I needed to be delivered for 3.5 or something. So you then go for a contractor who might be more competitive on cost, but their quality is really terrible. So yeah, all these kind of things, they all play a factor, and it's a long chain. So if you get your appraisal at the beginning right, and you do the processes that seem very laborious to a lot of people, then hopefully you'll come out with a good quality product at the end, because quality is a big part of it. So even when you're doing your PQQ or your tendering, when they return their stuff to you, you've got a certain weighting and criteria on cost and quality rather than just cost, because a lot of people just do cost and it's terrible, I think.
Sure.
But yeah, that's what I do anyway.
Okay. No, last question for me. What interesting project are you working on currently? Then I open.
Yeah, at the moment we're actually going through a big negotiation for 20 acres of land.
Wow.
In the Midlands area, and that's almost there. I'm sure at some point we'll probably share it a bit more and talk about that a bit more, but that's what's currently going, and that came through from an ex-client who I actually used to help. He does data centers and that kind of thing, and he just connected us with a guy who's an ex-banker who just owns a lot of land. So it was like, ooh. So
Wow.
really looking forward to that. That will have a museum on, and it'll also have a doctor's surgery next to it, and quite a lot of houses, hopefully, if it all comes through. So that's a big one that we're sort of working on negotiating and going through contracts for at the minute. And then we've got one site going through planning at the moment. It's up in Leeds. I'd say it's only small. It's a decent size. It's only 5 new build of 5 apartments. That's finishing the last bit of hair that I have. and then one that we're currently going through a whole redesign. So a bit of a mixed bag, really, I guess. But one I'm most excited about is this one with the 20 acres. Obviously, it's a lot bigger. but having done housing before on a mass scale, I feel it's quite comfortable. But it's always tricky because you never know what they're gonna pull out. One on the Friday, like on Friday when we have the Friday night conversation, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Send us over the contracts, yeah, we'll get them signed. But things change overnight.
So speed of implementation is crucial there. Like you have to be moving fast.
Yeah, I think once you get the opportunity, you want them to sign as quick as they can, not give them an opportunity to wiggle out. Because there's one that I'm negotiating. I've been negotiating since January. It doesn't even feel like a negotiation anymore. I think you just must like hearing my voice on a Friday when we catch up. So you get a bag of stuff.
Nah, for sure, man, for sure. Now, Ben, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. But I'm sure there's a lot of questions in the panel. So if you've got any questions, just raise your hand. I'll unmute you. Then you can ask your question, or you can put your question in the chat box. I can ask for you as well.
Can I go first, Tabo? My voice is gonna expire at 6:30.
For sure, Brian. Go for it, mate.
All right, thank you. Ben, just a quick question, buddy. Just taking into account that there's going to be a few questions from other people.
Yeah, sure.
And just being time conscious. So you did mention about acquisition of land in different areas.
Yeah.
So having to deal with the acquisition of land and doing the demographics of the area is obviously a formidable job. How then do you deal with the competition of the big guns like the other companies that you've talked about that are in property development?
Put it this way, if those guys are involved, see, it depends if on the sites where they're obvious. So the councils will have put out like a list of, say, brownfield sites or greenfield sites that they've identified for selling. So it could be like 10-acre farm or something like that. And 99.99% of the time, the big guys have already gone in and they've done their job. They've secured it on some form of long-term option or something like that. So what you're looking for then, so that you don't have to compete against the guys with big money, is to look for sites in and around what they've already secured, because then you're not competing against them. They're too small for them, but they're big enough for the likes of you and me. If that makes sense.
It does. No, that's okay. I just wanted to know how you deal with that competition. So
that's literally. Otherwise, you just get priced out. They got more money than I have access to.
Yeah, well, it's like you holding a pistol against someone holding a bazooka, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And aside from that, this particular, I mean, I mentioned this 20-acre one. That's just built on relationship. So, things like that, I know no matter who comes, we're good, because we're giving the landowner a really good deal as well. And he's not in a rush, which is always a dream scenario.
Oh, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that.
No worries.
Yep. We've got another question from Chaps, my brother. Unmute yourself, mate.
Hi guys, thanks, Tabo. Hi guys, my name is Tapiwa. Thanks for being on this call. Ben, thank you so much for everything that you said so far. Really dropping some knowledge. I just wondered, obviously, in your experience of kind of doing the type of deals that you do, what's been your worst experience of trying to get a deal done? What's the worst experience or biggest challenge in trying to get a deal done?
My worst experience this year is probably not as worse as some people have suffered. I mentioned this site that we've been trying to negotiate for 5 months. It's when the vendor's eye gets drawn to a potentially better offer. And say we had spent £6,000 in solicitor's fees and he hadn't signed. And then one Monday morning, he rings me, he's like, "Oh, Ben, I've been approached by this builder who's looking to buy his sister's house, who's next door, and also my land. So I can't go ahead." And I'm thinking, I've got a £6,000 bill I have to pay. So, and it's your own money as well. So, it can be quite annoying. But at the same time, you're like, you don't want to lose your rag, because it could turn back around and say, actually, I do want to proceed with it. The other guy's offer wasn't very good. And as it goes on this particular occasion, that went on for like a month and a half. And then last week, Thursday, he rang and said, I don't want to go with the other guys. They want to tie me up for 10 years. You want to tie me up for 3 years. I want to go with you. So you do get some bad experiences. I've certainly had that being the worst one in terms of cost and stuff on projects that have gone bad. Probably the worst I've had is a contractor going bust whilst in the middle of the job or towards the end of the job. But thankfully, this is where it becomes clutch to have things like proper contracts in place, not the back of the fact packet 2-3 page things. Proper JCT contract that deals with, if your contractor goes bust, this is X, Y, and Z you can do, etc. And that protects you, I guess, and also protects them. But in that instance, we were protected because we had a good contract in place. We shut the site up. They couldn't come and take all the materials off because they'd gone bust. Neither could their subcontractors or suppliers who had supplied stuff and they hadn't been paid. So that was a dicey situation, but we had the letter of the law on our side, which is the contract. So yeah, never sleep on the contract, a proper contract, particularly for construction purposes, is what I would say.
No, that's very true. That's very important because you have to protect yourself, especially when it's big monies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Tabs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cheers. Any more questions from anyone? Like the group is quiet. I think you've inspired them so much. They're going to take action now. They're looking on Nimbus.
I hope so, guys. I hope so, honestly.
Hi, Ben. Hi.
Hello, you're
Hi,
right.
Shirley.
I just want to ask a silly question. Yeah.
No
It's
silly
like,
questions, don't worry.
yes. It's like you said, builders, they are expensive now to get. You can pay them like when they do the job, you can pay them. Do you get in problems with such when you pay someone, they are not going to come back?
No, because I never pay them.
Okay, all right.
What I say is, I mean, no matter this is the thing, okay, no matter how small the project is, there's a certain type of contract that you can put in place to protect you, and predominantly well, in all the contracts, even from the small ones, the JCT ones, the main ones that I use, it dictates that you don't pay until a certain stage has been fulfilled and completed. So in the ones that I've been dealing with dominantly, it's more right at the end of the month, you both come, you have a look and see what's done, and then they put an invoice to you for what they've actually completed. On the smaller projects, it might be at the end of every week, might be at the end of every 2 weeks, but yeah, certainly don't pay anyone until you see some progress. It's not just if you've done it, you're not the only one. You won't be the first, you won't be the last. It's happened before, it'll happen again. But that's where I just think just have a contract in place. If you're doing stuff on a small scale, you can get a homeowner's contract. If you're doing something a bit more medium, like a BRR or a flip, you can get a minor works contract, and it'll cost you 2, 3, maybe 500, maybe even £500 to get it done. But at least you've got a contract in place that's going to protect your position and also the contractor to an extent.
Oh, thank you, Ben.
No problem, Shelly.
Yeah, for sure, Shirley. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
We've got 2 more people who raised their hands. We've got Mel and Luke. You can go first. Ask your question.
Hello. Hi. So I recently actually read a book that Ben was in, Samuel Leeds' book. So that was interesting hearing your name as well and how you did work with him. So that's cool. I wanted to ask, in your projects, so when you develop, do you sort of like hold them and then, get people to rent and stuff like that? Or do you always sell it on, or do you have a mixture of both? And which sort of strategy do you find best at the moment?
It's a mixture of both. But I mean, at the minute, some of the I suppose the developers who are in the good mainstream, they look to hold if it's residential. But at the same time, I think you need to have both options open, because you just have to be able to flex depending on what the market's like at the time. So you might build something where you think, right, I want to sell them, but then you get to the end and the market's just not delivering the numbers that you had got from your RICS surveyor or had forecast. So in that case, it might be better to, refinance and hold. But I think just being prepared for either of the two is good. But if your margins are wide enough and you've started off on the sale path and they're wide enough to swallow some dip in the market, then obviously you're in a good position. And yeah, you can obviously proceed to sell. But for us, we're open to both. It just depends on the market. But if you're doing things like student accommodation and you're looking to keep the asset, then obviously you started off with that intention. You can keep the asset because your deal is structured around primarily keeping that asset. So yeah, I think it's on a deal by deal basis is the honest answer, Mel.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for asking your question. I hope that answers your question. We've got another question. Chakuzwa.
Hey, Chabo, it's Tak, man. How are you?
Yes, Niwanje.
How are you, brother? Yeah, thank you very much, guys, for hosting this. And Ben, thank you very much for dropping your knowledge. I had a quick question just for Ben, I guess. In terms of what was your first project? I just wanted to understand what was your first project and how big that was.
My first project was a refurbishment of some social housing in Leeds, in a place called Chapel Town.
Okay.
And it was just refurbishments of 6 sheltered housing units. Nothing sexy, but I suppose that was my intro into dealing with builders, dealing with difficult tenants, and also dealing with housing associations as well.
Okay.
And that was 150 grand worth of work.
Okay. So does that, do you think that was a much better approach in you starting, going into property development in terms of, rather than, it gave you the necessary experience and sort of the learning curve that was required? I'm just asking from a perspective of, instead of me, let's say buying, 2 acres of land right now and trying to put 6 properties right now, what's your thoughts on that? It's just,
I mean, that just so happened to be mine, but I don't see a problem with what you're doing so long as you've got some form of know-how and you've got a clear strategy as to who you need and what you're doing with that acreage of land. Where are you in that stage at the moment? Have you just bought it already, or are you looking to buy it?
No. I think the situation is I managed to secure all the capital, but I'm just exploring the options right now and trying to create a plan right now and looking at still developing my strategy. So but managed to secure I've secured the capital essentially. Yeah.
I think if has he got planning already, or is it something that you still have to get planning on?
Well, yeah, I'm looking at different options. One with planning permission, one without. So, but I guess without planning permission, it's a hit and miss, right? As you said earlier in the call. So.
Yeah. So yeah, that's literally. I mean, if it doesn't have planning permission, I'll say before you buy it, just try and do as much DD as you can in the sense of just try and calculate the probability of you getting planning. It's probably the first point. It's never going to be a slam dunk, but you can try and eliminate this, the issues that you might come across. Check the local plan, see what's being approved for in the area, see if there's any major infrastructure issues in developing what you want to develop, see if there's any issues in the ground. You start doing that just by looking at like Google history, seeing what was there before, if there was anything, and at least that sort of paints a picture as to see for you to see whether it's worth the risk or not. Because on the other flip side, depending on how much it is, I mean, I've seen a lot of land recently where people have bought like 8 acres for 20-30 grand, in 5 years ago, and all of a sudden the villages and towns have grown, and now they're in the prime position to get developed on, and we're going to be paying £2 million for them. So it could be that you look at it and you think, actually,
yeah,
it's in a space where I can afford to buy and sit on, or it's in a space where actually I can afford to buy it, try and get planning, and if it doesn't get planning, guess what, I'll sit on it anyway, kind of thing. So I think look at your strategy is what I would say. I wouldn't say you're limited to anything, whether it's a small little refurb or a flip, or whether it's new build, whether it's 10, 12, 20 houses. I think if anything, the main thing is just getting the knowledge, or just getting some good sound knowledge around it first, and getting connected to people who can help you, and not being afraid to pay for the people to help you. I think that's the big deal, because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I want the help, but I'm not willing to pay the consultant to do it.
Yeah.
What's the point?
What's the point? Exactly. Nah, thanks. Thank you.
Cool. All the best with that.
Cheers, buddy.
All right.
Thanks for your question, Tuck. I hope Ben has answered it. The next person is Crescencia. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Ben, for the golden nuggets. Just to find out, with the deals that you get, do you have the non-circumvention agreement and non-disclosure form signed before you do any deals? Or
the non-disclosure mainly for if I'm approaching and sharing the information to an investor, that's mainly when we'll have the non-disclosure. If it's an option agreement with a landowner or a building owner, then it's normally just included within the option contract to buy, that he can't disclose anything until we say he can. But yeah, it's quite important, because things do get snuffed out.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly. It's happened before. It's very frustrating. It's not very nice when it happens to you.
Yeah,
and it's mainly by guys who've just got a lot more money than you do. There's nothing you can do about it.
True. Would you have any templates that I can use?
Unfortunately, I actually don't, because we just get them bespokely written by solicitor. So it wouldn't be very, very good. But I can show you one that I've been sent before to sign. That helps. I'll just take off detail. But they come in all sorts of forms and sizes. Some of them that I've received are like 2 pages, some are 1 page, some are half a page.
Right.
So yeah. But if you send Tabo your email, I'm sure I can get something to you.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for your question, Crescencia. The next person was I'm gonna get to you, Muzi. There was a question in the chat from Tendai. She said, how do you get those deals 1-to-1? So I think she's talking about the big deals.
What is she looking for one, or is she looking to jump onto one?
I think she's looking to jump onto one. Like,
okay.
Now you still on the call? I can't find it. Oh yeah, she's there. Tonight, you still there? Probably she's doing something. We'll move on to Muzi, then we can come back to you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, Muzi, go ahead, brother.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah,
so firstly, thank you very much for that, man. That is some really amazing stuff. I've got 2 questions. The first one, which is really important, and you need to be careful about how you answer it.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it coming home?
I think it's coming home. I'm quietly confident, but not to say that it's going to be easy. I think Italy, obviously, the most difficult team we could have had, but
not going to be easy, but it will be a great watch, to be fair.
It'll be a great watch, and whichever team wins, I think they're going to deserve to win, to be fair, because I think it's a tough game.
Very true. Right. Moko, be careful. Right. So what I actually wanted to ask, it's a difficult conversation that we've had with so many different people, and me and Tal will talk about this quite a lot, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. So this is to do with I kind of touched on it at the start when we're talking about why the ZPI group was actually created to start with. So this is to do with the Zimbabwean community or the African community. When you come to the UK, there's this belief that there's certain jobs that we can do, nurses, carers, security, where you will find the most amount of Zimbabweans. And that's kind of where our expectations are. This is coming from many conversations that we've had. So we get people that are really impressed that we are in property to start with, because it's believed that this is too high for us. And then we get people who are in property like myself, who then look at what you do and think, gosh, that is really high. is that something that you've experienced to start with? And also, how do you deal with that?
At the end of the day, I think we're all just people. And we've all had, different opportunities come our way, and we're all in different circumstances. There are the people who I looked and I think, man, I really want that guy. That guy's absolutely killing it, and everybody's got someone that that they aspire to. But I think one thing that's true, that I not only believe, but I totally believe it's applicable to everybody, is you all need to. There's a starting point from somewhere. There was no athlete who was a professional athlete from day one. We all start from somewhere, and wherever you are is as good a space to start as any. And if anything, I think looking at those people and thinking, wow, I want to aspire to be, to do what they're doing. I think there's no greater like compliment to that, because there's some people who do it well, some people who do it ethically correctly, some people who you might think, oh, that's a bit shady. But yeah, I think finding and aspiring to I say to, it's not copying, it's modeling. At the end of the day, there's enough room for everybody to model. So take the formula, man. Take the formula and run with it. And so long as it suits what you want to do and your strategy, find whoever's killing it in the strategy that you're looking to do, and just try emulate them as best as you can. I don't think there's any problems with that, because we're all trying to do the same at the end of the day. Yeah,
absolutely. Now that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, you know what to say about the best copycat wins, yeah. So yeah,
exactly. It's the wheel. That's so true. Look at what's it called? All these big. I read a lot of different books, not just construction stuff. Shoe Dog is one of the latest ones I've read. And when you listen to these guys and the creativity, there's so much stuff that you can cross apply from so many different places. So it's not always the person who's doing what you want to do. You could get inspiration from somewhere totally different as well. So look broad and just try to apply what you can to what you're doing. And hopefully, it can click, and you will be madly successful. So yeah.
No, for sure. I hope that answers your question, Muzi. We've got another question from Dalia. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. So I invited Chipo Correa, so she's asked 2 questions in the chat. If she wants to talk about it, but I think the main 2 questions were about having a WhatsApp group. So I'm sure you guys can talk about the ZPI WhatsApp groups that are there, and also about internship and shadowing. I think it's about kind of learning, because there's some people who haven't even dipped their toe, like myself, in property investment, but we really want to have a go. So is there any opportunity for that, so we can learn and not be too scared to have those £1 million deals?
I wish, if anything, the one thing I wish the company was big enough for me to be able to have internships and offer that. That's definitely an aspiration. At this particular moment, no. But as the company hopefully gets to FTSE 500, we'll be able to do that. But Dalia, if you've got like any questions or anything like that, like if you ping me, connect, send a message, I'll try to get back to you like ASAP. And hopefully that will just sort of just help you along the way a bit. There's a lot of knowledge, I think, amongst ourselves as a people. I'm speaking a bit selfishly, like as a Zimbabwean here, because there's so many of us Zimbabweans who do so many different things, and sometimes I just feel like if we just share the knowledge, man, everybody can eat, man. But that's just me. This is my thinking. So if you've got any questions, Dalia, along the way, if I can help you with an answer, just ping me a message, and I'll try to help you as best I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll just tell you straight up, I don't know the answer, or at least try to point you in the direction of someone who might. But yeah, just connect and yeah, just ping through, and hopefully I can help you out that way.
Yeah, that's a lot. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thanks, Dalia, for the question. Yeah, and there is a WhatsApp group for someone who asked about the WhatsApp group, just connect with Muzi or DM privately messaging. You can add someone who's interested in the WhatsApp group. The next question is from Mugo. Mugo Verutico.
Yes, that's Italian as well. Yes, Ben. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, Mugo. How are you, man?
I'm okay. Thanks very much for coming on this platform and sharing your knowledge. Very much appreciated.
It's all good. It's great to connect.
Yes. I've got a question. So when I'm walking around, I see all these closed off pubs, all these boarded up office buildings and stuff. And I'm just thinking opportunity, but I just don't know how to sort of take the next step. So what do I need to kind of do next? Or is there an easy way to do like a desktop evaluation to see if something could be viable, maybe as a commercial to resi conversion?
Yeah, I think that it's hard for me to paint out all the steps in such a condensed time. But I'll paint out what I would do if I saw something like that. Maybe that might help. I'd look at if it's a pub. The first thing I'll look at is if it's not trading, how long has it not been trading for? And I'll probably Google the address first, and see when the last time it was active. And also if the reason why I say that is because if a pub hasn't been active, if a pub has to be non-active for 2 years before you can convert it into resi or anything else, because they're now classed as community assets. So if they're trading, or if they've been trading in the last year or say 6 months, it's not going to be a quick and easy thing. So that's the first thing I'll look at. Personally, I think if it's been trading within 20 months, the last time it traded was 20 months ago, I'll probably dig into it. If not, I'll probably just pass and just look for the next one. The next step would then be find out who owns it, and just by the address, land registry, find out who it is, send them a letter, see if they're interested in potentially selling. And if they are interested, that's probably when I'll start working out my numbers, to be honest. I might do a bit of I think I could get 5-6 apartments in there, depending on the space. And how I'll get the space is, again, Google or land registry title plan, or what's it called? EPC. If it's registered for EPC, you'll be able to get this floor space from there. And typically, depending on the size of the apartments, it could be, I don't know, the ratio might be 80 square meters for one apartment or something like that. And then you then go and calculate how many apartments you can get. Look in the area. Is it something that would work? Would you be able? Is it an area that needs apartments? If you think, it's an area that could potentially work, then you go ahead, try and calculate how much they would be worth, and then try to calculate how much it would cost you to do. If it's like a pub, it might cost you 50 grand per apartment to knock into an apartment or something like that, depending on where you are in the country. And if those numbers work, the cost and the value on paper, on rough paper, send a letter. When the letter comes back, if it's I'm kind of interested, then I'll probably chuck in a bit more DD then, and waste it and spend a bit more time, because it might come back and the guy might just be like, no, I'm not interested, kind of thing. And then if you have wasted a lot of time, going through every single bit of DD, then it's just wasted time, basically. So that's normally, that's what I would do. In that case, if it's like an office building, it's a bit different depending on what type of office building we're talking about. If it's like a purpose-built high-rise kind of thing, then maybe not so. It's obviously going to take a lot more DD. You really have to know what you're doing on that, to be fair. And unless I think you've got exposure in that field, or you've got exposure to development at that scale, I think it'd be difficult. But if it's like a top floor above, 2 or 3 stories above, I don't know, a shop or something like that, that's easy fry that you can get into. Again, same principle applies in terms of calculating how many apartments you can put in. What doesn't apply is how long it's been trading. it doesn't really matter. But again, calculate how much you think they'll cost, how much you think they're going to be worth. Same thing, send an email, find out who owns it, send them a letter. If they're game for talking, go meet them on site, buy them a coffee, do whatever you need to do, and spend more time on the DD. And you might have to spend a bit of money on consultants, but it's part of the game. You're a developer at the end of the day. I hope that helps somewhat.
Oh, super, brilliant. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah,
sure.
no
Thanks,
problem.
Ben. Mugo, I hope that answers your question. I've got one more question. Then I'll bring up Muzi to close the call. I know we've been here for an hour and a half, so we really appreciate your time, Ben. Thank you so much. Alfred asked, Ben, you remember Alfred from Club?
I remember Alfred. Alfred's doing very well.
Yeah, he's in the HMO. He's gonna be our guest speaker soon. He doesn't know yet, but
I'll definitely be jumping on for that one because I know he's got some gems. I watch him on YouTube as well. He's good. He's good.
Yeah, he's good. He's killing it. He's asking, what's the most creative way you've secured a deal?
Most creative way.
Yeah.
Where the person starts off thinking they're gonna sell us the thing and then they end up jumping on as a JV partner, purely because we don't have to then put any money down for the site. It obviously you do have to share a bit more. But the best thing about it is you don't have to give them 50%, which is great either, because if they don't know too much, then you can pay them obviously what you pay for the site and maybe 10-15% of the profits and they're happy. And that's the most creative way we've done one.
So is that the one which they call no money down?
It's pretty much a no money down deal. You still have to spend money because they still did want a fee at the beginning. So it unfortunately, it's still money down. Sometimes I do think it's a bit of a stretch though, these no money down deals when I hear them, but some people do them.
Where'd you hear them from?
I don't know people a lot. I hear them a lot. But for me, you still have to spend money. Solicitors aren't free, unless if they just judge the deductibles. I'm not sure, but you still do have to spend a little bit of money.
Nah, for sure. Now, Ben, from me, thank you so much for your time. Like you always share your knowledge and you always give it. So really appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Over to you. I know you've got closing remarks for Ben as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, nothing but gratitude, man. Thank you very much for your time here and the stuff that you've actually shared, which is absolutely amazing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
It's great. I know you had said before as well that as long as you've managed to help at least one person, I can guarantee you there's a lot more than one people that you've managed to help. So thank you very much for that. And thank you to the guys that have joined, much appreciated, especially for the ones that have come here for the first time. Hopefully that won't be the last. Feel free just to drop messages on the chat to say thank you to Ben for anything that you've picked up today. And I've put in a message on the chat for anyone who would like to join our network, our community. Feel free just to message me on the number that I've put in the chat. That would be fantastic. We've got WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and we communicate pretty regularly. So it will be great to have a lot more of you. So that's pretty much it for us today. And if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to use the number and we can just help you remotely. Thanks again, Ben, and hope to see you at some point soon.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good night. Hopefully it comes home.
It will, man. It will.
Cheers. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. You can unmute yourself and say bye.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very